Hello, everyone out in the Savage Universe. I am JM, and we're here on Thursday night with Savage Universe. I have an exciting guest today. I have Jacob Navarro, who has a Kickstarter going on for Savage Worlds. Jacob, welcome to the show.
Howdy, howdy. Pleased to be here.
So tell us about, and I'm going to try not to butcher it, Ne Cede Malis.
So Ne
How close
Cede...
did I get?
Oh, pretty close. That's how I've been pronouncing it. So Ne Cede Malis is a Tinker Hellraiser. Ne Cede Malis is a science fantasy role-playing game inspired in particular by the works of Bungie Studios. You know them probably for Halo and Destiny, but some of the biggest influences on this game were some of their older games. Marathon, in particular Marathon Infinity.
Okay.
And the thing about the older Bungie games is that in the day they were thought of as great action games or whatever. And then somebody said, have you actually read the story that is on the terminals? Because there is just straight up a 3,000 word short story about a man who is floating up through the ceiling of his cell. And I think it means something, but I don't know what it means. And Ne Cede Malis is... when I say science fantasy, it presents itself as hard science. There's a lot of hard science like terminology. The arcane backgrounds are based on your cybernetic equipment, but also your 200-mile-long generation ship has 3 200-mile moonstone statues of the Hecate surrounding it. And also you may play as one of the biomechanical avatara of the witch gods.
Nice.
That's a style I call heavy pedal.
So let's kind of why did you make it for Savage Worlds? How did you get it? Like let's zoom back a little bit. So first of all, congratulations! You're about halfway through your campaign. You're 2/3 of your way to your funding goal, and hopefully we can increase some of that tonight from people learning about the Kickstarter here on Savage Universe. How did you get into gaming, and what drew you to Savage Worlds?
So I've been gaming since around probably 2000. Late 2000, I would say. The first gaming purchase I ever made was the Monster Manual for 3rd edition D&D.
Okay.
I got the Player's Handbook. Then I got the Dungeon Master's Guide, and it wasn't and pretty much whenever I've designed a role-playing something, I start with the monsters, because I just love monsters. Savage Worlds, I played it at Mid-South Con. I had a great time. I won a free copy of the rules at the table, and I won every single copy, every edition that came out. I won a free copy at a convention until Suede came out. That's the first time I ever actually had to purchase a new copy even. No publishing yet, but... Savage Worlds, when it clicked, I was like, oh, I get this. Yeah. And especially as I got into story-heavier games, something that really appealed to me about Savage Worlds is that it hits that nice middle ground between a tactical, everything is well-defined system, and it's got room for narrativism, especially in the arcane backgrounds, which I especially love. So when designing Ne Cede Malis started last year, I think it was when the trailer for the new Marathon game came out, and I saw some people talking smack about it, and I thought, if only you knew what I knew about this series. And I thought, I've been tinkering with Savage Worlds. It's been my main game for most of the last decade and a half. And I thought, maybe I could, whip together a little tribute or something I could publish like for a low cost, like through like the fan program. And then it gradually got larger and larger and larger and more of its own thing. Yeah. And then I thought, one, I'm going to have to kickstart this. I need to expand the reach it has, the art budget it has. Yeah. And two, that means I'm going to have to become an ace.
Yeah.
So once the first draft was completed and once I got some art done, and I found a very wonderful editor, Pete B. Saloom, and a very wonderful layout guy, Mornay Shop, I got things assembled, and I got an ace off of the strength of those first previews of the game.
Awesome.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So give us the elevator pitch for the setting. I know you've mentioned Marathon. If I remember correctly, I think the first time I heard about Marathon was Matt Colville talking about how deeply rich this game was. but very few people interacted with the depth. They just sort of, skimmed along the surface and played the game.
Oh yeah. Like the thing about the story of Marathon is that it's almost entirely optional. You can just mash through all of the lore screens and then get to the next part. As for the elevator pitch for this game, the gist of it is the heroes are troubleshooters on the Hymns Like Honey, the aforementioned Generation ship.
Yeah.
Last night, something made its way past the defense orbits and crashed into the hull. The first wave of people we sent in to investigate have not reported back. Troubleshooters exist partly outside of the chain of command because chain of command can't solve everything, and this is weird as all hell, so we're sending you guys in there. And the alien invasion is the first and the least of your problems.
Excellent. I mean, that is a great hook right off the bat.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is there a plot point campaign, I assume, that goes with
there
this?
Oh yes, there is one involved. Funny enough, the original plan was basically to have practically a randomly generated one. Like there's the three factions, who invades first, who's the reveal, and who's secretly the mastermind. But as he was editing, Peter said, it's clear you have a story in mind, just tell it. And I'm like, all right, you forced my hand.
Yeah.
So the plot point campaign starts with there is a quick start available, the emptiness engine. It chronicles the response to that crash on the ship and the intervention of the first enemy faction, Monad. And it has a hint at the faction who is the biggest problem. Those guys you will come to know as Antipath.
Awesome. So we're getting, I assume there are setting specific rules that you have put together for this?
There are. Surprising.
Share a couple with us? Give us a little tease here.
Okay. So probably the most interesting one, if I may say so myself.
Yeah, go for it.
So the arcane backgrounds in Ne Cede Malis use the arcane background system as their basis, and it's phrased as you start with an arcane background. There's two interesting catches. One, everybody has an arcane background.
Okay.
Everybody, like troubleshooters, are either enhancile, that's most of them. That is, they're cybernetic, they're genetically augmented, they're unusual, and So rather than using a cybernetic system, as in, purchase some artificial arms or purchase a gun that fits in your guts, we are using the arcane backgrounds to say, so you have enhanced strength, you have the lift webbing Hex. And rather than take new powers, the basic human arcane background has 5 slots for hexes. You start with 2, and you get an extra 1 after each mission, which is to say adventure, until you have the full complement of 5. So you don't have 5 decisions to make on top of everything else at character creation.
Okay.
Likewise, rather than just strictly, this is a power, this is how, do the usual rigmarole, hexes, well, you can't design your own, of course. Largely, they are pre-generated. They have their own set trappings, but they include trappings like maybe you want the electro laser, which can also be used to share power points or non-lethally shock somebody or lethally shock somebody. Or maybe you will want the laser fuse, close-in weapon system, so you can shoot down subsonic enemy projectiles in addition to zapping somebody with a laser. And those are just 2 different applications of blast with special abilities, bolts rather. Likewise, there are passives that are inspired by the I forget the name, the backgrounds from the Fantasy Companion, where you just spend power points and they activate. Mystic powers, that's the one. And so if you want to be a space wizard, you can load up with the active abilities, the active hexes, or if you want to just focus on regular combat, you get the passives, the enhances that you can just spend power points to activate. So it is as complex or as straightforward as you like.
Very cool. I mean, that's a great way to handle this. I mean, one of the things I've enjoyed doing Savage Universe has been talking with several designers in the same space. and seeing how they're all doing, for example, cybernetics in their own unique ways that fit very well with the Savage World system.
Yeah, the modularity is a huge advantage.
Yeah.
I did some work for the excellent Stingers and Spores. And something that I like is that Stingers and Spores has its own size rules because the bugs vary hugely in size.
Yeah.
And it works perfectly well on its own. The size system provided in Fantasy Companion also works really well. But Stingers and Spores is great if you want to zoom in and really work on, like, we want to really emphasize like the scale difference between wildly different ancestries.
Right.
Likewise, if you have the science fiction companion, you can borrow from it, use special rules from it. But I wanted a system that would work with the core Savage Worlds. And while the Savage World cybernetics rules in the science fiction companion are great for what they are, I've never been the biggest fan of purchase your gear or purchase your core abilities with money. So among other things, Ne Cede Malis is a post-capitalist setting. So you don't really have to spend cash to get your gear. You just, well, mission starts. What do I need? And likewise, hexes, you just start with them and you get more as the campaign goes along. And you can reverse engineer enemy hexes and add them to your panoply.
Cool.
Oh yes, that was a big start. One of the other influences, because there's a lot of influences, was XCOM, specifically the way you can reverse engineer enemy equipment and build on it. So in Ne Cede Malis, you can reverse engineer enemy hexes and convert them to your side, or reverse engineer weapons so you can use them without penalty, and eventually upgrade the HIMS weapons so they operate better. So, for example, if you research the right technologies, the heavy pistol gains the ability to shoot explosive bullets. So your heavy pistol now does heavy weapon damage.
Nice.
And that was another thing that was really handy about Savage Worlds. It was very elegant in handling things like, okay, weapon type matters in a lot of these games I'm inspired by. So resistance, which is normally ballistic resistance and like reflect, oh, you're resistant to lasers. I turned that into ballistic and energy resistance. And at the expense of your armor being heavier or your cybernetic body being heavier, more about that in a second, you can reduce the damage from ballistic or energy weapons. So who are you fighting? What are you more scared of?
Oh, so there's some tactical choices at the start of the missions that you could. I mean, also, I could imagine if one were so inclined as a GM to say, well, here's the faction that's presenting, but really it's this other enemy that's going to be revealed, that's going to ramp up the tension in the fact that, hey, we prepared for X.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly we're here with Y, and what we brought doesn't work on Y. Now we have to scramble and figure out how to deal with that.
Exactly. Like the second planned adventure, Howdy, Nightsmith Dinner Table, is heavily predicated on that. And that's part of why there are 3 factions. So they all have their different tactics, their own ideologies, and their own weaponry. So you have one faction that is primarily energy weapons, one that uses primarily ballistic weapons, but they have powerful energy weapons as backup.
Okay.
And then you have those that grow their own, but also steal from everybody else. So it's a grab bag.
Yeah.
So you can't just assume, okay, if we're fighting Monad, bring your energy armor. If we're fighting Antipath, bring your ballistic armor, because the Ruin is always a problem, and the Ruin like to use both.
Excellent. I like the idea of, I mean, right, 3 factions is always a good sweet spot, right? In campaign design, because you get a lot of tensions just between the 3, and then obviously your PC faction is sort of the 4th unofficial one that's kind of pulling back against these 3 and shifting around the pyramid. Because when you only have 2, then there's not as much space to work
exactly with. I think the number I saw is you need a minimum of 3 to get betrayals.
Yes. Betrayals, backstabs, and alliances.
Mm-hmm. And especially in Ne Cede Malis, the 3 enemy factions all want something that is directly opposed by the other factions. and all of them need the hymns to achieve their goals, and they don't need everybody on it alive or anybody on it alive, or what they need is the people. It's bad, very bad what they want.
So Kickstarter's going well. You're obviously, having been through this several times, first goal is always getting the book funded and ready to go. Do you have stretch goals in mind?
I do. I listed a few at the start, and hopefully we'll be able to hit some. Like, all the books that I have listed are going to get made. It's just the Kickstarter is going to make it faster. So on the off chance that Kickstarter doesn't make it, Ne Cede Malis is still going to happen. It's just going to happen a little slower. And the first book isn't going to be as pretty, but so it goes.
Yeah.
The first is a player-focused book called Devils in Arms. And one of the big themes of Ne Cede Malis is that the enemy factions, well, it's something that I noticed in every single test game that I ran for the first adventure. Everybody wound up deciding to save the shock troopers, and most of them then proceeded to use them to try and convert the other enemy faction members who were present on the scene. At least, and all of them wanted to save at least one. And I thought that was neat. It was an interesting sort of emergent faction, like an emergent thing. And I always intended, like, so there are people in the enemy factions who can be rescued or converted, and Devils in Arms is going to include player-focused rules for example, if you decide not to play the first adventure and just go straight into the main campaign, then it's very likely that shock troopers will have defected to the hymns like honey, and you could play one.
Okay.
Shock troopers being the lowest ranking of Monad's soldiers. Dare I get into a little lore here?
I mean, please.
So shock troopers can tell you this. So the goal of the hymns is to reach the planet Hamish. It's one of 2 planets in this system that could support life. The other one, the Clees, has life, and it has a civilization on it. And they, within the last century, nuked themselves into the proverbial Stone Age. And so the hymns has the Hecate, Gorgo, Mormo, Bombo. And from the ashes of Maclise rose Monad. Monad has one artificial intelligence, maybe deity, Hamadryad. And Hamadryad's thing is, see that spaceship that's coming here with the 3 statues? Yeah, they're jerks. We're going to take their stuff, and I'm going to conquer the universe, and all will love me. And the enemy troopers are roughly divided into the haves and the have-nots. The haves are members of Monad, or the reasonably healthy, who get cybernetics, they get better armor, they get better equipment. And you have the shock troopers, who are conscripts. They're wearing the uniforms of the last war. Most of them are terminally ill or heavily abused.
Oof.
They have special, straight up, one of their enemy abilities is just called, I think it was called Fly to Heaven at one point. I think it might have been renamed to The Last Goodbye. Let me double check. But it's literally the shock trooper pops both of their thorn grenades and charges.
Fun.
Yeah, like that. This is a horror setting, by the way.
Yeah,
it's
no, I'm picking up on that.
Yeah, it's science fantasy, but a big thing is like multiple levels of horror, ranging from this is a dark reflection of the hymns. This is what people who are really fanatical will do. That's kind of Monad's deal. The Ruin, you can probably guess what their deal is. They're the Flood. They're the Necromorphs. They are a biomechanical plague that are descended from an attempted terror weapon invented by one of the terror factions that have plagued the hymns in the past. And Antipath is the ultimate enemy. Their origin, I might leave it a little secret, or at least hint at as the campaign goes on. But you do get to find some of their technology in the first adventure, which is something that scares the hell out of Monad and which cannot be understood by the players when they see it. And Antipath is obliquely hinted at in the Kickstarter when I say that the personal is cosmic.
Yes.
like personal cosmic horror. Like I saw once on a forum like a long time ago, a user said that Cthulhu never scared them because Cthulhu was like a tornado or a hurricane. If it kills you, well, that sucks, but that's the universe. But they were always scared witless by Darkseid of the New Gods, because Darkseid hates you personally and wants to do terrible things to you because he considers himself better than you, and he's frighteningly powerful and can do whatever he wants.
Yep.
And the personal cosmic horror is in that vein, where the reason horrible things are happening are rooted in, okay, I'm going to sound very pretentious, philosophical and personal experiences of the faction leader of Antipath.
Awesome. Well, Antipath, and you mentioning Darkseid tying this in, right? Anti-Life is one of my favorite doomsday, vaguely doomsday-ish weapons.
Yeah.
Right?
It would be more charitable if it was a doomsday weapon.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you are a fan of comics, but one of the most recent ones that came out that used Anti-Life that I loved was they finally did, like, remember there was Marvel Zombies?
Mm-hmm.
I was never a fan of Marvel Zombies. It's just like the beats never hit me. I'm not a huge Robert Kirkman fan. Like I bounced off Invincible, I bounced off Walking Dead, but Deceased is perfect. Anti-Life causes the zombie outbreak, and yes,
yeah. I noticed. Slowly loses sanity. You might be interested that one of the hindrances in Ne Cede Malis is in bloom. Oh, things are definitely get surreal in Ne Cede Malis, because dream logic and dream horror is a big thing, and straight up one of the hindrances is called in bloom. Like, one of the things I wanted to avoid was that the cybernetics in Ne Cede Malis are very safe. They've been tested, they've been proven, except for Libet's Bouquet. There's two versions. You can get Libet's Bouquet Safe, which grants the deflect power, and the description is you have a temporary blackout as your nerve ending supercharge, and you can dodge without conscious thought. And there is Libet's Bouquet Unsafe, which is a bundle package of deflect and speed, and you can activate both as your bliss state. And if you critically fail while you're in the bliss state, you have a dissociative fuge. And among other things, the long-lasting process is some or all of your body hair is replaced with flower petals. So one of the pre-gens, Ray Roatscrews, has what looks like a flower crown growing around her head, but those are actual flower petals because she's got flowers growing in her brain.
Right, the in bloom.
Nice. And the hindrance is at the major level when everybody else is undergoing downtime. When you pull your card, if it's black, instead of having, I think it's either black or a spade. I think it's a spade.
I think club is usually bad.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah. I don't have the book open, and
no,
there's a lot to keep track of. And instead of getting a downtime activity, you have a really bad dissociative fuge and an associated vision. And this has the added complication that Antipath is very interested in people who are in bloom.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, guys, if this has all sounded interesting, I'm going to put the link in the show notes or in the chat again. Please go check out Ne Cede Malis. I love personal cosmic space fantasy horror. Like all of those genres mashed together is kind of my jam.
Oh,
and Jacob, good luck. Thanks for coming on Savage Universe. Like, this has been awesome. I wish you the best with this.
And you'll get to see the art when you take a look at the Kickstarter.
Yes.
Which is not something I can very easily show on account of this camera is pointed at my face. But in addition to personal art, there is art for some extremely talented people. And one of the goals of this game is to make something that doesn't look like anything else. A lot of purple, a lot of very smooth lines, a lot of freaky stuff.
Nice.
Oh, yes. Yes, very excited. Savage Worlds, longtime favorite. Love it. Surprisingly, talked mostly about the horrifying things that are waiting for the players and not the players, but the Kickstarter has a lot of previews up already about some of the cool people you can be, some of the cool stuff you can use, some of the cool places you can protect. And yeah. Any final observations as this gets into the last leg?
I am really excited for it. I'm, we will be keeping track of it. I'll put up an article there in the last week to kind of see where we're at on Savage Universe. And Jacob, thanks for coming on. Best of luck.
Thank you kindly. Thanks for having me on. It's been lovely. And I will catch all you cool kids on Kickstarter.
Yes. And next week we'll be back with more Savage Universe. I'm going to have there's 3 Savage Worlds Kickstarters going on right now.
I noticed.
One is a Pinnacle one, and they get their own time on their channels to talk about it. 2 are Ace licensees. One obviously is Jacob's Ne Cede Malis, and the other one I'm going to put a link in for right now is Bizarre Kingdoms for Odysseys and Overlords. I'm going to have at least 2 of the authors on next week, possibly 3. I may even get Landauer to come in and host it because I am one of the contributors to this book. Very excited about it.
I haven't heard of this. I think I might have seen it, might not have, but I am very excited already.
Oh,
it's been a great year for Pinnacle for Savage Worlds Kickstarters.
And there's been a lot of great Ace license products, and there's going to be even more. I mean, Star Animal Studios has some more coming out this year.
I backed Secret World.
Yes, I just I finished up my adventure and turned it in and got the red lines back to him. So I wrote this little Contagion adventure about viral zombies. And if you have a Kickstarter coming up or a swag product or some cool fan creation, please go to savageuniverse.com. info@savageuniverse.com is the way to get a hold of me. I would love to have you on the show. Jacob, you can attest to the ease of the process, I hope.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty painless. Got the signed up for the StreamYard, click the link, and boom, I'm in.
That's right. So until next week, everybody go out and play some Savage Worlds. Go check out Ne Cede Malis, back it, and let's get Jacob across the finish line in the next 16 days. Till then, make all your dice ace.
Get tons of raises out there, friends. Love is the law. Love under will. That's the catchphrase.